I've received a bunch of questions in response to fitting the gun to your hands video and a couple other ones talking about grip, specifically where your hand should be on the gun and about how your support hand interacts with the grip panel or having enough room for your support hand. So anyway, I just want to talk through those quick and I'll answer listener questions. So maybe a dumb question. I was always taught to hold the gun in my main firing hand in a manner that the bore was in line with my radius bone in my arm. But when I do this, I feel like I have a less than ideal grip with a gap often in between the right grip panel of the gun and my palm where I'm wrapping my hand around the pistol. Does this mean I have a pistol that has too big of a grip for my hand, or is this old advice poor and there isn't a need to align the gun with the radius bone in your forearm when firing? Feel free to roast me if this is a horrible question or I'm just an idiot. Well, the good news is you're not just an idiot. People come up with all kinds of crazy things. I want to talk through the positioning of the gun in your hand specifically. So for grip, people come up with all kinds of weird things where they want, some people like shooting with a finger in front of the trigger guard. I've got this light in the way, so I can't. But some people prefer having a finger in front of the trigger guard. Some people shoot more like this, maybe it's like this, maybe it's like this. I don't really care that much. The important part is making sure it's repeatable. So it's got to be the same every single time. And if your hand position changes, you do this one time, then you're more like this, then the next time you're more like this, that's going to be way bigger of an issue than if it was just you picked one and did it. For me, well, also as far as the hand being in line with your arm, find a good angle. Like, yeah, this is probably a terrible idea. This probably isn't that great, but as far as it being exactly in line or anything like that, I don't think that matters a ton, especially where people's hands are shaped differently. What I look for is I just open my hand, just set the gun in it, and just close my fingers. Wherever it feels natural, that's where it's going to be. Yeah, more or less, the gun is in line with my arm, more or less. And as far as contact points in the gun, I want my support hand up high on the back of the beaver tail, hitting the bottom of the trigger guard. So that's where my firing hand ends up. With my support hand, I come in. I like it's just the easiest method. It just kind of karate chop or hit the bottom of the trigger guard. Then I just close. So my hands are hitting together. That's the grip I use. It's just really easy to get that off the draw because when the gun's coming out towards the target or where my hands meet, I can just hit my hand underneath, close, and it's easy to make that. It's very easily repeatable. So talking through where your support hand goes, the important part is the meaty part of my palm. I want to have contact with as much of the gun as I can. So talking about having space between for whatever reason, space between the palm of your hand and the frame, that's just going to limit how much control you have over recoil. So you want to have as much contact with the two as you can. For me, basically especially if I'm shooting a ton, this one's got silicone carbide on it. This part of my palm will end up kind of being raw because it's almost like it's been having sandpaper over the top of it. It'll just end up being very calloused and maybe a little bit sore, but that's just from basically gripping the pistol hard and then having all this section filled in as much as I can. And if you look at the gun, you can see where all the dead skin is filling in on it. Those are the spots you want to contact. The other spot that normally fills in a lot with dead skin, for right-handed people, it would be the back right corner of the gun. It'd be down here. So since I'm lefty, it's down here. So the spots on your grips or even a Glock, just the frame, if you don't have any kind of traction on it, just the spots that fill in with dead skin are a good indication of where you're getting traction on the gun. But anyway, when I grip the gun, got this open spot. I just want to have as much of my support hand in there as I can. So the meaty part's touching the frame, and then I don't want any kind of a space between my thumbs. I don't do anything with my thumbs as far as putting pressure into the gun or trying to steer it. The reason for that is if you want to push in pressure or just a little bit, or some people rest on a ledge or have the gas pedal, something like that, the important part would be that it's the same amount of pressure every time. Because if it fluctuates while you're shooting, I could actually steer which way the muzzle's pointing. The other part, so again, I don't get super wrapped up about the positioning of your hand on the gun. The part that's more important is the pressures. The one I like using, or the method I like, is with my firing hand. I think about just holding the gun firmly. It's firmly enough that you couldn't get the gun away from me. It's not going to come out of my hand. And when it recoils at all, like my hand's staying put on the gun, but it's not as hard as I can possibly hold the gun. Not so much that my fingertips are all turning white or anything like that. The reason for that is I want to be able to work my trigger finger independently of the rest of my hand. And if I clamp down my whole hand, it's going to be tough to work the trigger finger fast. And often you'll see sympathetic movement where when people are pressing the trigger, the thumb's moving, something like that. So I just want to grip the gun firmly with my firing hand, but not death grip it. With the support hand, you can clamp down pretty much as hard as you want. Nothing bad really happens. And the whole point of this is when the gun recoils, you want it all recoiling together. So if the firing hand, if your support hand separates from the bottom of the trigger guard, something like that, that would be a problem. So you'd want to add either some of the grip enhancers, which is more or less just rubbing alcohol, or lifter's chalk, something like that, just to dry out your hands. That's a good thing for helping. You could do silicone carbide. The Talon grips for kind of skateboard tape, those work really well. So anyway, that's what you're looking for. So anyway, the pressure, I think, is way more important than the specific positioning of your hand on the gun. You want to be able to get to the trigger. You want to be able to get, you have to rotate your gun a little bit to get the mag release. I don't care. For me, it's just having both hands locked on the guns. When the gun recoils, it all recoils together, and being able to get to the trigger. The rest of the controls aren't a super big importance. For the slide lock, you could always use a support hand for that. You could slingshot it. You have to shift your hand a little bit to get the mag release, no big deal. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. Hopefully that's helpful. Again, I don't get super spun up about like a specific position or something like that. Just think about the pressures you're using, and you want them to be the exact same from shot to shot, which it sounds simple. It's just not easy. Anyway, hopefully that's helpful. If you have any more questions, drop them below.